Ladies and gentlemen, you are listening to the Two Guys Talking Podcast Network. Thank you.
Well, hey there. Welcome to Green Gab. Today, I am so excited because I have huge news today. But this is Marla Esser. I'm the Green Home Coach. And I am announcing today that Tony Pratte, who y'all have heard here on the podcast a few times, is now my official co-host. So welcome, Tony. Are you excited like I am?
I am so excited, Marla.
Did I set you up?
Yeah, you did a little bit, but that's okay. I mean, we've had all these plans that we've been working on since January, and, this was part of it, from our discussions. And I'm just kind of excited because we can think about, 2016 as our own private green odyssey that we get to go on.
Green Odyssey. I like that. For those of you that have been listening to the podcast for a while, we call each other our green partners in crime. So the Odyssey will continue.
I hope it does.
Well, to add to the excitement, we also have two guests in the studio today with us.
It's kind of crowded in here today.
I know. This is awesome. I love it. We're going to have a party in here, right?
Absolutely. Definitely.
So today we have two wonderful ladies from DJM Ecological Services. And I've known Christy Cunningham for, a long time. Really since I got into the whole green scene. Oh boy, that was rhyming. Green scene in St. Louis. And Colleen, I just got to meet today. But I'm so excited to have y'all here.
We're happy to be here, too. On such a nice day, it is a little difficult to be in the studio, but with such great company, I'll let it slide because it is nice weather out there.
We won't keep you too long, we promise.
All right.
Yeah, there's lots of planting to do, for sure.
What has been so nice is we've all had across the nation this crazy weather where it's been cold and then hot, and I think the cherry trees bloomed in Washington, D.C. in December, and then they get snow, and so we've been all over the place. But the good news is that by the time this airs, we'll be good in here, and that's at least a time that we all start thinking about outdoors. This is what you guys specialize in, and I know just digging around on y'all's website, I'm like, oh my God, they did that. Oh, wait, they did that. Oh, I didn't know they did that. So y'all have touched a lot of projects around St. Louis, but I'd like to take a minute for each of you to introduce yourselves and what your role is with DJM. And then one of you, tell us a little more about what DJM specializes and what your philosophy is, really.
Sure. Christy Cunningham, and my background, a degree in biology, and then went on for environmental education. So I was an outdoor educator, science teacher in the green building industry as a consultant for probably 10 years. And then actually where I was before DJM was one of our clients. So it was a nice actual segue into my position now, which is part business development, outreach, client development. So this fits perfectly into what I do. But also, one of the reasons I moved to the company was because I like to be outside. I am an outside dog. And although most days I am tied to my computer, but I do have the opportunity to work in some fabulous places. I joke that a lot of our days at work are a day in a park. It's like a walk in a park because Forest Park Forever is one of our clients, Tower Grove, DePere. We have parks in St. Peter's, and these are all municipalities here in the St. Louis metro area. But surprisingly, we've touched a lot of places. We're also doing a lot of trails and greenways lately that are getting people outside, getting them active, riding bikes, walking, alternate modes of transportation. And I joke about that one of these days I'll be working less and be able to ride those more often than building and installing the plants. Just ecological restoration.
Very cool. And Colleen, what's your role?
My name's Colleen Autry, and I came on to DJM as their project estimator. So I look at all these projects, go out on site visits, and put kind of the numbers to it. So again, I'm also connected to a computer, but I do field work. That is my background. I am getting a degree in sustainability from WashU, graduating this May. But I also have a background. Thank you.
Party here.
Big party
in May.
Coming up in May.
It's my alma mater.
That's awesome. I also have a background in horticulture. I have worked in agriculture. I've worked on an organic flower farm, done all kinds of different things. And what really drew my attention to DJM coming on was that they do that restorative work, that they're always bringing things back to nature, kind of using native plants and trying to fix some of our water issues and all of those things that we're dealing with. So it's been great being a part of the team. And I do like that opportunity also to get outside and to kind of work on these projects, but to get the whole scope from my job, it can be stretched out for 6-month period to see it on paper, and then to actually get in the field to see it finalized is a pretty cool thing. So,
Tony, while you come at it more from the automation and the technology side and the entertainment side, so much of what even y'all do is helping people to get outside in their homes.
Oh, absolutely.
And to enjoy it. So it really kind of comes full circle.
Well, it's almost like a thread that joins all four of us here, because each one of us has a portion of our job is to work out and about on these job sites and really get a feel for what's going on. And, I know a big part of what we do with homeowners is we want everybody to enjoy that outdoor living, which for some people it might only be 3-4 months, but I know people that once March hits and they're outside till November easily, they want to spend every waking second, it seems like, outside. So you might as well, do it in the biggest and most favorable environment you can.
Right. Right.
Well, and it can be an extension, really, of your living space.
Mm-hmm.
Like if
Absolutely.
you think of porches, years ago, people, when they didn't have air conditioning, would sit on their porch, and you could visit and be part of the community. A lot of people want an outdoor kitchen, and that makes it just really an extension of the house and a space that can be used. And I'm all about maximizing the space you have. It's the most sustainable. You get more bang for your buck if you have a nice area to enjoy outside. Anything that gets people outside more is something that I can promote, get behind wholeheartedly.
And we are so blessed here. And so St. Louis, for those of you that listen nationally, actually has a park here that's larger than Central Park in New York City called Forest Park.
Mm-hmm.
That's where Colleen came
where
from,
I
and
came
also one
from.
of our clients. We
Yeah.
did a controlled burn there 2 weeks ago, and it's part of their restoration, keeping their savanna really up to par like nature did years ago before we started kind of interfering with it.
Right.
But we took Colleen from there. Well, she joined. We didn't hold
took
her.
her.
Didn't poach her.
I didn't. We didn't make that, but it was something that, as we're growing, looking for those types of people that work in projects like that.
Absolutely. It was such a wonderful opportunity to get to work in that park every day and to maintain the spaces that, like you say, people get to get outside and enjoy with their families and have a lot of special moments in every day. People get married in the park, people bike there, just have a picnic, go to the Muni, any of those things is really lovely. And now I feel at DJM, I'm expanding that even more, getting to go private residences or go on these greenways and just kind of keep expanding throughout the St. Louis region that same work that we do. It's really a wonderful opportunity.
And there's so many parks here. I don't know that I've lived here for a long time, a lot longer than I like to admit. And I am always flabbergasted I'll drive around a corner and there's a new park. So I want to keep that thought in mind. And when we come back, let's talk a little bit more about St. Louis parks and the community.
Wouldn't it be cool if your advertising could last forever? It can with perpetual advertising. Here's how it works. Unlike TV or radio ads, where every instance the ads are broadcast, they're only played once and lost forever. Perpetual advertising can have repeat exposure and replayability weeks, months, and even years after they're inserted in a podcast. So even if a podcast is a few years old, your ads will still be impactful to repeat listeners, as well as new listeners. This gives your advertising dollar the most bang for the buck. Find out more about perpetual advertising at twoguystalking.com/sponsors.
Are you addicted to hot sauce, spicy foods, mouth-watering barbecue, chili peppers, or buffalo wings? Well, do we have something for you? Join Scott Roberts, host of the Weekly Firecast, a foodie podcast on the Two Guys Talking podcast network that features the best of fiery foods and barbecue. Whether you like cooking over fire or crave food that feels like fire in your mouth, there's bound to be something for you. So tune into the Weekly Firecast at twoguystalking.com and savor the burn.
Welcome back to Green Gab. Hey, we are getting in on the gab for why green matters to you, your family, your friends, and your community. This is Marla again. And speaking of community, Christy and Colleen, I just about called you Kathleen. Sorry about that.
Whoops.
Y'all are doing some amazing work in the St. Louis area, and I think you go out of the area somewhat with ecological restoration. So explain a little more what that means and what goes into it.
Restoration work is just taking an environment that was once a certain way. You know, we live in this area which was tall grass prairie and short grass prairie. It doesn't look like that anymore. We've had a lot of urbanization, a lot of sprawl, a lot of people moving around has changed the environment that we live in. And then we've introduced horticulture practices for, invasive species have come into our area, as well as just more plants that homeowners pick up at different nurseries that are what they like to see in the front of their home. So it's just our environment has constantly changed, and we're trying to do work that kind of brings it back to what it used to be. And that might mean making pollinator pockets in your backyard or fixing water issues that have come up because of something that you've put in. So our work is kind of comprehensive in that way. We can handle a lot of different situations. We can go in and help you remove honeysuckle if that's taken over your backyard, or we can put in a different plant palette that's pleasing but is solving a couple of different issues. So that's the majority of the work that we do. And on big scale projects, when we go into these parks and things around St. Louis, we'll take on some of those tasks that you might not be able to handle by yourself, where it takes a crew of people to go in and make that work quicker, or handle something like a controlled burn that takes a lot of precision and scientific research that goes into those things. So we can handle small to large scale.
Okay.
And the burn, I was going to say insurance, like at Forest Park with everything, the museums and hospitals around. That's something that's very specialized. And we've been doing for a while, and insurance is key, which I'm surprised. Mm-hmm. Like, I joke that they let me on that because I'm like really a klutz, but I'm still there.
Well, and that's interesting what you say about the controlled burns. I drive into Oklahoma quite a bit, and it's really dry there right now. So they will do controlled burns to keep the wildfires away, and the wildfires out in the west. So is it a controlled burn to help control burning possibility, or does it actually restore the land, or both, or how does that work?
That is one of the things. And in certain situations, when you have a woodland, you might want to burn out what they call the fuel on the floor, which is the leaf litter or any kind of pieces of wood that have fallen to the forest floor. It definitely reduces that greatly, the amount of having a uncontrolled fire. But there is also this restoration aspect of some seeds that are underneath the soil don't have an opportunity to germinate until the fire goes through, or the leaf litter is burned off so that they have that germination power behind them. In Colorado, there are, not so much here, but there are pines that actually need, they're ponderosa pines, serotinous cones, and it's almost like the sap holds the cones together until the heat comes up, it melts, and then the seeds drop. So nature has adapted to have that actually as part of its generation, new plants.
Right.
And we kind of squash that by kind of keeping control. So that's a good question. It covers kind of both restoration and having the major episodes. We don't want those. It's in a smaller scale, manageable.
That makes sense. So, Colleen, you said something that really kind of perked my interest a little bit ago. Mm-hmm. You said oftentimes homeowners will bring home a plant just because they really like it, and then it doesn't work out. Well, you insinuated that, and I just read into that. So we're getting into planting season. A lot of us want things that will look nice really quickly, so a lot of us end up planting annuals. What kind of advice can you give us as typical homeowner that's likely going to a big box store or maybe a nursery if we're lucky and doesn't really know what we want? We just want something that, quote unquote, looks good and is easy to take care of, or as I say, looks good, performs well. Where do we start?
Well, obviously, when you go to a nursery center, they're going to show off the most beautiful things, and there are some gorgeous plants out there. And don't get me wrong, I love getting my pansies and things in my front beds. They look really nice. But what we like to think about is more the long-term aspect of that. So the ornamental plants that you put in, for that one season, just kind of pop a color. Some annuals don't have a great impact on the environment, but some things, when you get into trees and shrubs, they really do. So we're fighting a big issue right now with the Callery pear, the Bradford pear. They're naturalizing. People have put them in their yards. They're beautiful tree. They're 4-season, opportunities. They're great in the spring. They're white flowers, and then they have a nice red fall color. They're a great shape, but they do cause problems. So my suggestion to homeowners would be to look at the tags, see the zone that you're in, really select, plants that are fit for your environment that you live in. And I mean, native plants are native plants. They've been here, they've lived here, they've, figured out what this environment takes. So you're always, I don't want to say it's foolproof, but it's definitely a much better method than trying to pick something from a different zone or a different country even that come into your area and, aren't going to really have the best overall longevity for our area.
What's in your garden, Tony?
Well, I will tell you this. My prized possession in my house are my 2 magnolia trees. I have 2 of the largest magnolia trees you have ever seen in St. Louis. I did a little research on them. They are, white and pink, so they're a hybrid. They were bred to, come up north from the south, and they've been around for about 70 years. And these things thrive to where my neighbors, when it comes around Easter time, they want to get their pictures of my trees when they're in bloom.
They are gorgeous.
Oh, they are
pretty.
beautiful. They are beautiful.
Trees.
I love my
southern
magnolias.
tree, right?
They are a southern tree, but they are basically made to thrive in St. Louis, and they have.
Do. Yeah, they do.
When you come into my neighborhood, you can see my trees from blocks away and just know, oh my gosh, those are my trees. They're gorgeous.
I thought he was going to say, you ask him what he has in his yard, barbecues. Like, that would be awesome.
Oh, no. In my little bitty yard, I have 11 gigantic trees, and it is great.
So there's room for us to barbecue.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
Come on,
Yes,
I have
there are.
a courtyard. Yours has got to be bigger than that. But on my tiny little courtyard, I grow like 3 or 5 kinds of vegetables, 4 or 5 kinds of herbs. I have a fruit tree, blackberries, and
Yeah.
I have edible stuff on most of my backyard, my little pocket courtyard.
Yeah, I have a 10 by 12 little raised bed, and I grow a ton of food back there all season long. It's such a wonderful thing to go outside and be able to cut your own cilantro for a taco or something like that.
Hey, we're going to get hungry here.
Plus, you just got chickens, too.
I did.
No, there's a whole nother conversation we can have.
There's
Definitely.
4. They're so cute. I mean, they're definitely molting and they're growing like weeds. So it's kind of a fun process to watch them in just 2 weeks, tripled in size. So
Whoa.
pretty cool little things.
Just watch out for foxes and hawks.
Absolutely. Yeah, we have a healthy population of hawks and falcons. So I've got everything protected to keep them safe, hopefully.
I'm finding a lot more people wanting to do, a little bit more to be more self-sufficient. I mean, 100 years ago, 150 years ago, most of us were self-sufficient because we didn't have the luxury of walking to the grocery store. But I'm finding that's a bigger comeback. And I'm finding people, even like my mom, talking about keeping chickens. So it's kind of crazy. Going back, what is it? Not back to the future, but the other way, right? I guess that's where we go. So we're going to take a break.
Hi, this is Art Maines from Scammercast.com, where we educate, inform, and protect our elders and those who care for them on the Two Guys Talking podcast network.
Join in a unique, interactive experience as we put you inside the mind and heart of the law enforcement professional and delve into the culture of policing. Hi, I'm Mike Wilkerson from the Two Guys Talking podcast network, where I've reviewed hundreds of police procedural television programs and movies. But the question remains, does Hollywood get it right? What does it really feel like when you search for a suspect inside an abandoned building? The fear, the adrenaline, the unknown. Law enforcement training for the arts, or LEDA, is an experience like no other. Fingerprints, ballistics, DNA. Our team of professionals have numerous years in law enforcement, to include those with experience in the United States Secret Service, the U.S. Attorney's Office, the FBI, the United States military, along with other local, state, and federal entities. Our unique facilities offer the same interactive courses that the police themselves use to train. This will be an experience of a lifetime that you'll never forget. Check out the details now at letaconference.com. That's LETA conference.com. And sign up for the upcoming convention. Seats are limited, but we're eager to see you behind the thin blue line. letaconference.com. letaconference.com. Go behind the badge.
Getting on with the Green Gab. Marla and Tony here chatting with Christy. Colleen had to step out and go get a kiddo, I think.
She does. And we started a little late. We were sending emails at the wrong door, and Marla had her phone on silent because that's what you do in a podcast. You don't want to hear the phone ring.
I know.
Didn't see that I had called about 10 minutes before. And you know what? I got here early too. I try to be early versus late. It's easier, especially when you all were expecting me. And thank you for asking me to be the guest.
It would help if I had my time straight.
It's okay.
Details.
It's a Monday.
Little
it is
details.
a Monday.
It's not only a Monday, it's a day back. With me going back and forth between Oklahoma and here. And I work down there and stuff, but it always takes me a day or two to shift gears and know which place I'm in. And plus, it's Monday. This is my office day, but we needed to get recordings done, so...
Happy to help.
I'm so glad you could. Thank you. Thank you. I really wanted to keep going on this whole kind of conversation about things that an individual homeowner can do, learning from the lessons that y'all teach, Christy. What kind of advice can you give a homeowner besides looking for native plants, which I always recommend native or at least regionally appropriate plants at a minimum, because when we're doing green home certifications, that's one of the things that we look for. But what else? What kind of things? I know we talked a little bit about pollinators or gardens that attract like bees and birds. I know a lot of people are into hummingbird gardens, but at any rate.
I love hummingbirds. So on our scale, like working either some of our clients have a 1 acre creek and prairie that we maintain, steward, or install. Then sometimes it's like a trail here, Great Rivers Greenway, where it's 3 miles, and then we're doing another expansion of that. But one good example, we planted over 10,000 plugs. There's bioretention basins, which basically means a way to hold water, a natural way, right? Like a rain garden. And so on that, one of those projects, we planted about 15,000 plugs of natives. And so you don't have to take
like a plug of grasses? Or
there's some grasses in there. There's some forbs, flowers.
Okay.
And so I was going to use the example that we were there. One of them, the very first year it was planted, there were so many bees. And you could go in there and stand around and just watch the activity, them going from goldenrod to aster to milkweed. We even did milkweed from seed, and there were monarchs there.
I say milkweed's monarch food,
Absolutely.
right? Monarch butterflies for people that
they need that.
Monarch lovers.
You don't have to do 10,000 plugs, but you can go do, like the city here has Milkweed for Monarch program, where they have a list of things that you can actually pick, and they provide nectar, they provide habitat, and you can do, a tray, 30-some plugs, or you could even do half that. It doesn't have to be a lot. I've seen more monarchs, about 20, on one of our city projects that maybe it is a bioswale, the edge of a parking lot in the city that had 20-some monarchs, and it maybe is 15 by 15 feet in an L shape. So anything that we do, you can do on a smaller scale.
We don't see as many as we used to.
No, we don't. And they get the conversation started about pollinators. And we think that food, like maybe a third to a half of what we eat comes from a flower. And so pollinators are needed for that. Also thinking that, so we use this rain garden on a large scale, bioretention basin, but it takes water from all these developments and streets. And it's a soft engineering practice. Instead of uses plants to take in the water.
To filter it.
Instead of actually a big detention basin or some sort of tank underneath the parking lot where you really are just slowing the water down. It still goes to the stormwater system where these plants soak it up. They hold in the soil. They have root systems. There's a compass plant. It's like a sunflower, but you think that compass plant, it's taller than me. They can be 8, 9, 10 feet tall, but you're seeing about a third of it. 2/3 of its roots go down. So it's holding soil where grasses that we plant only have, about as big as, I would say, even your thumb, a root system. So they're not going to take in that much water or hold in soil when you're kind of looking at large-scale rain events. They're hard workers.
Having a piece of ground that holds water, like a bioretention pond or a rain garden. I mean, here in St. Louis, where we're usually flooding, that makes a lot of sense. But what about in areas of the country that don't necessarily get as much extra rain as we do. Do those things still make sense?
Well, in some places they may, like you might have a flash flood in some areas of the Southwest. When it rains, you might get tons of water, and that may not be the best approach. And I know some areas, they may just get a sprinkle a day. So they might not have a big inundation of water like we do that we have to deal with. It really is kind of extreme here, both cold and hot in the summer. Lots of water. Sometimes we go through a drought without it, but they're made to actually, again, not just St. Louis, not Missouri, but regionally appropriate. A plant doesn't know the boundary between Illinois and Missouri, but they're you can.
Plus, they're really smart.
I know, right? There are those smart plants you get, but they're pretty similar in weather patterns and climate. Just looking at regionally appropriate is those ecotypes are a good start. If you think about, this comes from my background, when you would look for materials that were within 500 miles, that covers plants too. I mean, if you're looking for some sort of hard surface like Missouri granite versus Italian marble.
Right.
And even think it could be cheaper because you have to ship it from over here.
And that's finally starting to kind of catch up.
What, you have tons of Italian marble in your house, right? Like, your
doesn't everybody?
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, not so much.
I can't with dogs, but that's a whole nother story. So thinking about that kind of aspect with plants too, and they really do work versus just looking good. And here's my thing. I'm also lazy. I would rather plant the stuff and then go ride my bike on trails instead of every year going and getting new plants and putting them in, and then in the fall, okay, so I'll buy mums and put on my porch one. But once I put it in, I have other stuff to do, right?
Right.
They're low maintenance. Nothing is no maintenance.
All right.
Don't let people fool you if they're talking about natives or rain gardens. You have to maintain it. But, if you be proactive and kind of get a plan, just like your car or your house, changing out your filter, it's going to have a longer life, be more efficient with your HVAC and heating. Not only do they look good, they provide habitat for pollinators, they stormwater retention, erosion control. At least just investigate the idea if you're going to look into. You don't have to do it on a large scale.
But start somewhere. We'll post your website on the podcast notes.
Absolutely.
So if people want to visit there, Missouri Botanical Gardens is a great resource here in Missouri, and there's similar resources around the country to really help people get going. Hey, find one plant that's native or regionally appropriate and go with it, and you're giving it a start. I can't believe our time is up. I could talk forever. So thanks again. Check back in. Thanks for getting in on the Gab for Why Green Matters to you, your family, your friends, and your community. Have a great day.